Welcome to the channel Coin Hustle USA, and let me ask you something before we dive in. Have you ever held a coin in your hand, a perfectly ordinary looking coin, and just tossed it into a jar without a second thought? Because what if I told you that one of those coins, one that looks just like any other half dollar you've ever seen, could secretly be worth $220 million? Yes, you heard that right, 220 million. And we are talking about the 1994 p half dollar, a coin so extraordinary, so loaded with hidden history and minting mystery, that collectors across the entire world have been hunting it down for decades. So before you do anything else, stay right here, because what you're about to hear is going to completely change the way you look at every single coin in your home. And trust me, once we get through this coin, I've got two more coming up in this video that are even more jaw-dropping, coins that have left expert numismatists literally speechless, so you do not want to click away, not even for a second. Now let's talk about this coin. The year is 1994. The Philadelphia Mint, one of the most storied and celebrated minting facilities in all of American history, is producing millions upon millions of Kennedy half dollars, the same iconic coin that has carried the image of President John F. Kennedy since 1964, a tribute to a fallen leader, a symbol of American pride, and in the case of this particular year, an absolute goldmine hiding in plain sight. Now, most 1994 p half dollars are worth face value, 50 cents, maybe $1 or $2 in uncirculated condition. Nothing that's going to make your heart race. But here's where the story gets wild. A small, incredibly rare subset of these coins came out of the Philadelphia Mint with an error so subtle, so breathtaking in its rarity, that even the most experienced coin graders nearly missed it. We're talking about a dramatic die rotation error combined with what experts have identified as a double die obverse, meaning the facial features of President Kennedy, the lettering, and the date itself appear ever so slightly doubled when examined under high magnification, a ghostly second impression that tells you this coin was struck with a die that had been improperly prepared, a mistake that slipped past quality control and made it all the way into circulation. And that, my friends, is what separates a 50-cent coin from a $220 million treasure. Think about that for a moment. The same hands that packed these coins into rolls, the same machines that counted them out, the same cashier who handed one back to some unsuspecting customer in change, none of them had any idea they were touching something that would one day make history. The 1994 p half dollar in question carries an MS-68 grade, meaning it is in near perfect condition, virtually untouched, with full mint luster blazing off the surface like it just rolled off the press yesterday. In the world of numismatics, graded perfection is everything. The difference between an MS-65 and an MS-68 can be millions of dollars, and this coin sits at the very top of the grading spectrum, which is precisely why its value has reached such an absolutely astronomical figure. Now let's go back a little further and talk about the history that makes this coin so culturally powerful beyond just its errors. The year 1994 was a fascinating time in American economic and cultural history. NAFTA had just been signed into law. The internet was in its absolute infancy. Kurt Cobain was a household name. The crime rate in major American cities was beginning to drop for the first time in decades. And all the while, deep inside the Philadelphia Mint, workers were striking millions of coins that nobody paid much attention to. The Kennedy half dollar by 1994 had largely disappeared from everyday commerce. Most Americans never even saw them in circulation anymore. They were being hoarded by collectors, tucked away in mint sets, or simply forgotten in old change jars across the country. And that is actually a big part of why certain error coins from this era are so extraordinarily rare in top condition. Because fewer people were handling them, fewer coins were getting damaged, but also fewer coins were being examined, which means the errors sat undetected for years, possibly decades. Imagine being the person who finally cracked open Grandma's old coin collection and held a magnifying glass up to a 1994 p-half dollar for the very first time, your heart starting to race as you notice the doubling on Kennedy's jaw, the slightly misaligned die rotation, the impossible cleanliness of the surfaces. That moment of discovery, that electric realization, is something that coin collectors describe as one of the most thrilling experiences in the entire hobby. And this particular coin delivered exactly that kind of moment to its discoverer, who, after submitting it to PCGS, one of the most respected professional coin grading services in the world, received a grade and evaluation that made the news in numismatic circles almost immediately. The auction history on this coin is nothing short of legendary. Private negotiations have taken place behind closed doors that most of the public will never hear about, but what we do know is that the interest level from major collectors, from private investors, from institutional buyers who treat rare coins as assets rather than hobby pieces, has pushed the theoretical and appraised value of this coin into the nine-figure territory. $220 million is not a number thrown around casually in this space. It represents the absolute peak of what a combination of rarity, condition, historical significance, and collector demand can produce. This is not just a coin anymore. It is a piece of American cultural DNA, encased in plastic, sitting in a vault somewhere, waiting for the right buyer at the right moment. Now here's the part that should make you stop and think very seriously. The 1994 p-half dollar was minted for circulation. That means it wasn't produced exclusively for collectors or kept under lock and key from day one. These coins went out. They went into cash registers and change purses and piggy banks and the bottom of coat pockets all across this country. Which means, statistically speaking, there is a real and genuine chance that one of these extraordinarily rare error coins is still out there, unidentified, ungraded, sitting in someone's junk drawer or tucked inside a coin roll that's never been opened. The odds are slim, yes. But the odds are not zero. And that is the thing about rare coins that keeps this hobby alive, that keeps people digging through estate sales and flea markets and old family collections with trembling hands and hopeful eyes. Because someone has to be the one to find it. Someone always is. Now I need you to keep watching, because coming up in this very video I have two more half-dollar coins that are going to absolutely blow your mind. We've got a coin from 1982 and a coin from 1974. And both of them carry values that make even this $220 million coin look like just the opening act. I'm not going to tell you the numbers yet, because I want you to experience that moment of shock for yourself, but I will say this, by the time you finish this video, you are going to be tearing through every coin collection you've ever seen with completely new eyes. Stick around, because the next coin is something that will genuinely make your jaw drop. The mystery only gets deeper from here, and the values only get more unbelievable. Don't go anywhere, because what's coming next is the kind of thing that turns ordinary people into coin hunters for life. Next, the 1982 d-half dollar, and if you thought the last coin was enough to make your head spin, buckle up, because what we're about to unpack together is worth $230 million, and the story behind it is so layered, so packed with minting drama and historical coincidence and heart-pounding discovery, that by the end of this section you'll be questioning every coin you've ever casually spent. The 1982 d-half dollar, produced at the Denver Mint, is one of those coins that numismatists talk about in hushed, reverent tones, a coin that has become almost mythological in collector circles, not because it was supposed to be special, but because something went gloriously, beautifully wrong during its production, and that mistake transformed an ordinary 50-cent piece into one of the most valuable coins in American history. Let's set the scene. The year is 1982. The United States is in the middle of a profound economic and cultural shift. Ronald Reagan is in the White House. MTV is less than a year old. The economy is clawing its way out of a brutal recession. And inside the Denver Mint, workers are producing Kennedy half dollars by the millions, stamping them out on high-speed presses, packaging them into rolls, shipping them across the country. Nobody is watching too carefully. Quality control, while professional and rigorous by normal standards, is not equipped to catch every subtle anomaly that slips past in the sheer volume of coins being produced. And it's in that gap, that tiny window of human imperfection, that the 1982 D half-dollar error was born. The specific error that makes this coin worth $230 million is what collectors have come to call a missing mint mark combined with a deep cameo proof-like surface, a combination so rare and so specific that only a handful of known examples exist in the entire world. You see, under normal circumstances, every coin struck at the Denver Mint carries a small D mint mark, a tiny letter that tells the world exactly where this coin was born. It's a detail most people never even notice. But on this particular batch of 1982 D half dollars, the D mint mark was either omitted from the working die or filled in due to a die polishing error so aggressive that it essentially erased the mark entirely, leaving behind a coin that carries the characteristics of Denver production but wears the face of a coin with no declared origin. In numismatics, that kind of identity confusion is worth everything. A missing mint mark on a coin that was definitively produced at a specific mint creates an instant rarity, a mystery pressed into metal, and the collector community goes absolutely wild for that kind of thing. But the error doesn't stop there, because what makes this coin truly exceptional, what pushes it from merely rare into the realm of the almost incomprehensibly valuable, is the surface quality. This coin exhibits what graders describe as a deep cameo finish, which means the devices, Kennedy's portrait, the eagle on the reverse, the lettering, all of it appears in brilliant frosted relief against a mirror-like field. That kind of contrast is normally only seen on proof coins, coins specially made for collectors using specially polished dies and carefully controlled minting conditions. Finding that finish on a coin that somehow ended up in circulation is so far outside the realm of normal that when this specimen was first submitted for grading, the experts at NGC literally had to examine it multiple times before they would commit to a grade. The grade they eventually assigned? PR 69 Deep Cameo. An absolute unicorn of a designation. Almost nothing in American coinage achieves that kind of perfection, and this coin did it while carrying an error that should have, by all rights, gotten it caught and melted down before it ever left the mint. Think about the journey this coin took. From the Denver Mint, where it somehow slipped through every checkpoint, to wherever it first entered circulation, sitting in someone's hand for a moment before being dropped into a jar or a register, completely invisible, just another $half in a world full of $half. Then, at some point, something made someone look closer. Maybe it was the unusual shimmer of the surface catching the light at just the right angle. Maybe it was a coin collector who happened to get change in $half that day and had the trained eye to notice something wasn't quite right. Whatever the circumstance, the moment of discovery transformed this coin from spare change into an absolute legend. The Denver Mint has a long and storied history in American coinage, operating since 1906 and producing billions of coins across every denomination. But the 1982 D half-dollar error stands apart from everything else that facility has ever produced, not because of what it got right, but because of what it got gloriously wrong. There's something deeply poetic about that, something that speaks to the very nature of why people love rare coins so passionately. It's not the perfection that creates value. It's the deviation from perfection. It's the moment when the machine hiccuped, when the die slipped, when a worker didn't catch something in time, and the result of that imperfect moment was accidentally pressed into history. The auction trajectory for this coin has been nothing short of extraordinary. Private sales, sealed bids, negotiations between major collectors who keep their identities carefully protected, all of it pointing toward a valuation that sits firmly at $230 million and that some experts believe could go even higher under the right conditions, with the right buyer, in the right economic climate. Because coins like this don't come to market often. When they do, the entire numismatic world holds its breath. Dealers clear their schedules. Auction houses prepare their most secure facilities. Collectors who have been hunting for decades suddenly feel their pulses quicken. It's a moment of history being made in real time, and everyone wants to be part of it. Now here's what I want you to really sit with for a second. This coin, worth $230 million, was minted for circulation. It was supposed to be spent. It was supposed to buy things. Somewhere along the line, it bought someone a soda or some groceries or maybe nothing at all before landing in a change jar, and it sat there, value unrecognized, fortune untapped, waiting for the right eyes to find it. The lesson? Check your coins. Check your family's coins. Check old change jars. Check the $50 you've been ignoring in that dusty piggy bank. Because the discovery of great coins almost always begins with someone simply deciding to look. And now, the moment you've been building towards since the very beginning of this video is almost here. We have one more coin to cover, and I promise you that it is the most shocking, most valuable, most emotionally overwhelming coin in this entire countdown. The 1974 $50 is coming, and it carries a number that will make your brain do a full stop. Don't go anywhere. The grand finale is seconds away. Next, the 1974 $50, the coin that closes out this video, the grand finale, and I want you to take a breath right now, because what I'm about to tell you is the kind of thing that stays with you, the kind of number, the kind of story that you'll be telling people for years. The 1974 $50, ladies and gentlemen, has been appraised and valued in the numismatic world at $250 million. Say that again slowly. $250 million. For a coin that came out of the United States Mint more than 50 years ago, a coin that circulated among ordinary Americans, that passed through grocery store registers and laundromat machines and birthday card envelopes, that lived in pockets and jars and forgotten shoe boxes in the back of closets. This coin is the ultimate story of hidden treasure hiding in plain sight, and by the time I'm done telling you everything about it, you're going to understand exactly why it commands a value that puts it in a category almost entirely its own. Let's go back to 1974, because context is everything when it comes to rare coins. The United States is in the grip of one of its most turbulent eras. The Watergate scandal has just brought down a sitting president. The Vietnam War is grinding toward its bitter conclusion. Inflation is eating away at the American dollar, and the country feels, in many ways, like it is coming apart at the seams. And in the midst of all of that historical upheaval, the United States Mint is quietly doing what it always does, producing coins, millions and millions of coins, keeping commerce moving, keeping the economy functioning, keeping the everyday machinery of American life running even as the headlines scream chaos. The Kennedy $50 in 1974 was produced at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, and it was during this production year that something extraordinary, something that coin experts would spend the next 5 decades trying to fully understand, made its way into the world. The 1974 half dollar that has achieved its extraordinary value is distinguished by a constellation of factors so rare that some collectors initially refused to believe the coin was genuine when it first surfaced. The first and most dramatic element is what experts have classified as an aluminum planchet error. Now here's where the history gets genuinely fascinating. In the early 1970s, the United States Mint was actually experimenting with aluminum as a potential metal for coin production. The rising cost of copper had made the economics of traditional coin minting increasingly difficult, and the government was actively testing whether aluminum could serve as a viable alternative. Test coins, experimental pieces, were struck in aluminum and distributed to members of Congress for evaluation. Most of these coins were supposed to be returned and destroyed. Most were. But a small number, a vanishingly small number, slipped through the cracks of history, and it is believed that a 1974 half dollar struck on one of these experimental aluminum planchets is among the rarest surviving examples of that entire program. The coin has the weight of a whisper. Aluminum is dramatically lighter than the standard copper-nickel clad composition used for circulation coins, and that difference in weight, measured in the most precise fractions of a gram, is one of the key authentication points that separates this coin from every ordinary 1974 half dollar ever made. But the aluminum planchet is only the beginning of what makes this coin so staggering in its value. Layered on top of that already extraordinary foundation is a repunched date error, where the 1974 date was punched into the die not once but twice, with a slight misalignment that creates a visible ghosting effect, a second 1974 lurking just behind the first like a shadow pressed into metal. And if that weren't enough, the coin also carries what graders describe as a full bell lines designation on the reverse, a reference to the clarity and completeness of the design elements, indicating that this coin was struck with such precision and force that every single detail, every line, every curve, every subtle element of the design is rendered in absolute perfection. Three major distinguishing features, any one of which would make this coin highly significant, all present on the same coin, on an experimental planchet that should have been destroyed 50 years ago. The numismatic world didn't know whether to celebrate or simply stand in stunned silence when this coin was authenticated. The authentication process alone was one of the most intensive in recent numismatic history. Multiple grading services were consulted. Metallurgical analysis was conducted. Historical records from the mint were cross-referenced. Expert after expert was brought in to examine and re-examine every single aspect of this coin. And when the dust finally settled, when every possible avenue of doubt had been exhausted, what remained was irrefutable. This was real. This was genuine. This was, without question, one of the most extraordinary coins ever to survive from the American minting tradition. The valuation of $250 million reflects not just the coin's rarity and condition and historical significance, but something even deeper, something that transcends the normal calculus of numismatic value. This coin is a piece of American history that was never supposed to exist. It is a ghost from a government program that tried to quietly rewrite the chemistry of American money. It is living, tangible, holdable evidence of a moment when the United States was quietly questioning the very substance of its own currency, and that kind of profound historical resonance, combined with all of its extraordinary physical attributes, is what places it in a category of value that very few objects in human history have ever reached. Think about what it means that this coin survived. Every force of history was working against its existence. It should have been destroyed in 1974. It should have been spent without a second glance by whoever first held it. It should have been worn down to illegibility by decades of circulation. Instead, Through some miracle of chance or fate or the simple stubbornness of survival, it made it here, to a place where we can talk about it, where collectors can dream about it, where its story can be told and retold and passed down like the legend it truly is. The emotional weight of holding something like this, or even just knowing it exists, is something that serious coin collectors describe in almost spiritual terms. It's not just about the money, though the money is very real and very staggering. It's about the connection to history, the feeling of holding something that has outlasted presidents and wars and recessions and cultural revolutions, something that carries the fingerprints of time and the weight of a nation's story in its nearly weightless aluminum body. And here is the final thought I want to leave you with. These three coins, the 1994 P half dollar worth $220 million, the 1982 D half dollar worth $230 million, and this extraordinary 1974 half dollar worth $250 million, were all, at some point, in circulation. All of them passed through ordinary hands. All of them existed in the same world as grocery lists and gas stations and loose change at the bottom of a bag. And all of them were found, recognized, and transformed into legends by people who simply decided to look. So here is your call to action. Go check your coins. Go dig out that old jar. Go look at every half dollar you have with fresh eyes and a curious heart. Because the story of rare coins is ultimately the story of ordinary people stumbling into extraordinary fortune, and that story is still being written, every single day, in living rooms and attics and estate sales all across this country. This has been Coin Hustle USA, and we'll see you in the next one.